Luigi Einaudi was a really well-known person. He became, as you told, the first democratic elected president. He founded the winery in a really young age, so was about 23 years old. He was born not in Dogliani, he was born in Carru. That is a small village not so far from Dogliani. So he born in this area, so was really related to the soil. So this is why he started his own first winery business. To let him study, his parents decided to sold all the fields that they had by property. So what he has done after had finalized the studying is to say thanks on a really specific way to the parents. So he decided to rebuy the fields that they sold for him, and he decided finally to use this kind of field. So he started to embrace his own first winery business.
Fascinating people with stories to share, fabulous wines and the best local foods to accompany them, and beautiful places to discover and visit. All of this and more on Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast. Join me for a new episode every Tuesday. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today we travel to Piedmont, to Dogliani, to visit one of the region's historic wine producers, Poderi Einaudi, and to meet my guest, Giulia Abbona, who is the winery hospitality manager. Buongiorno, Giulia. I had the opportunity to taste the impressive range of wines from Poderi Einaudi at Grandi Langhe earlier this year. So it's great to meet you here this morning and to learn more about this historic estate. Many thanks for being our guest. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Good morning. Thank you for letting me be here with you. It's a pleasure.
Is it a beautiful morning in Dogliani?
It is. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Well, Giulia, just because our listeners are located all around the world, can I ask you to describe Dogliani, to describe where the headquarters of the Poderi Einaudi is, just so we can get a feel of the landscape, and it's an autumn day. I'm sure it's really beautiful at this time of year.
Yeah, now it's starting a little bit to be a really deep autumn season. So in Dogliani is located in the Langhe area. In these days, Dogliani has been on a temperature really, really deep. So we are introducing in the winter season in these days. It's sunny, but it's really, really, really cold. Let's say that is Dogliani. It's in the heart of the Langhe. The Langhe area where we are situated, it's in the lower of the Piedmont region in Italy, and it's a little bit located between two provinces that are Cuneo and Asti. Inside the Langhe, it's a little bit divided, the landscape, because we have the high Langhe and also the lower Langhe. We are situated in principle in the lower part of the Langhe. The Langhe area, it's a really particular piece of land because it's really characterized by gentle and also complex hilltops, which gave rise to the name Langhe, that in ancient Piemontese language means Langhe means hill. So this area, it's really well known for wines, but not just for wines such as Barolo, which is the most popular. It's really, really well known also for white truffles, the classical Tonda Gentile hazelnuts, and also in general, the gastronomic traditions of our Piemontese food.
That's actually a very good introduction, Giulia, to the Langhe, because, as you say, I think we can think of it as single-minded and just producing wines, but it's so much more than that. The wooded areas where the white truffles are found, and then in the Alta Langhe, of course, the chestnuts as well, or the hazelnuts. The hazelnuts, which are very important economically, product of the area that helped to rebuild post-war. I want to actually ask you as well for a short history lesson, because Poderi Luigi Einaudi was, of course, founded by Luigi Einaudi, who was also the first democratically elected president of the post-war Italian Republic, a position that he held in critical years, 1948 to 1955. So when the country was recovering from a devastating world war, a war that even became a civil war when Italians were fighting Italians. And he was very instrumental in the reconstruction and healing after the war, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. In a specific way, Luigi Einaudi founded the winery exactly in 1897. So Luigi Einaudi was a really well-known person. He became, as you told, the first democratic elected president. He founded the winery in a really young age, so was about 23 years old. He was born not in Dogliani, he was born in Carru, that is a small village not so far from Dogliani. So he born in this area, so was really related to the soil. So this is why he started his own first winery business. To let him study, his parents decided to sold all the fields that they had by property. So what he has done after have finalized the studying is to say thanks on a really specific way to the parents. So he decided to rebuy the fields that they sold for him, and he decided finally to use this kind of fields that were most of the time woods properties, but also on 70% were vineyards. So he started to embrace his own first winery business. So we are really historical for production, for example, of Dolcetto, of Dogliani, that is the main wine that you can find in the village. We are also related to the traditional production that you can find in the Langhe area, like Nebbiolo, Barolo, or maybe Barbera. So he started at a really young age because was really related to the soil and really passionate about the wines and also the business here of the wine.
Giulia, that was a difficult time as well.
Yeah.
That was around the time Philosopher had devastated the vineyards, and he was having to rebuild the vineyards after this pest that had wiped out the vineyards in the area. Is that right?
Yeah, is right. Yeah.
So, although he's known as an economist, a politician, the first democratically elected president, at heart he was really a farmer, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. He was kind of a farmer at the beginning. He also organized the winery in a really specific way. Poderi, it's a collective name, so they decide to also not just buy vineyards, but also buy houses where they let live the people that work for Luigi. So this help also him to control better all the productions, all the works in the vineyard, because the vineyards were not located in the same village, were a little bit more far from Dogliani for some reasons, and also some were a little bit more closer to the winery. So he instituted a really good organization that also was at the beginning familiar, continue to be familiar also now that we are a little bit more bigger than in the past after a century of production. So it's good to know that we continue to always invest on new productions, new actors, but we always keep the same organization that Luigi Einaudi Institute at the beginning. So we used to say that we are a kind of also familiar winery now.
Okay, that's really interesting. These are the Poderi. I think you have 13 cascine now,
Yeah.
is that right? And so that really goes back to the heart of the foundation of the wine estate, of having the small estates where the tenant farmers at that time would have been living and working. And that's across Langhe, in Barolo, in Barbaresco, as well as Dogliani and other areas. The company still remains very much in family hands, now under Matteo Sardagna Einaudi. Is that right?
Yeah, Matteo Sardagna is the fourth generation, so the son of the nephew of Luigi Einaudi. So, fourth generation of the same family that in every generation ruined the winery. Just to know the size, actual, we start with Luigi with 11 hectares. Now we are arriving with Matteo, that is the actual owner, with 75 hectares. And it's all by our property.
Okay, so and all the wines are made entirely from your own grapes then?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the Einaudi family, just sticking partly with historically, are also founders of one of Italy's great publishing houses, Einaudi, founded by Luigi's son.
Yeah, Giulia Abbona.
They published some great Italian authors. And Ludovico, the renowned composer and contemporary pianist, is also a family member.
Yeah, exactly. He's the direct cousin of Matteo.
Okay, so this is clearly one of Italy's illustrious families. Still today, making wine, going back to the roots of where the family began. What is the philosophy and approach to growing grapes and making wines? I know that the values and ethos of the company can hark back to the values of its founder Luigi, but Matteo has also brought his own vision to the wine estate.
Yeah, as in the past, we wanted to continue to make traditional wines, so to every time express every vintage how it is, so to not encourage to have always same style in every vintage. So we want to express a little bit of the particularity of every vintage. So in the past, we used to had to follow the tradition of Luigi, so we also use the same way to make wine, like fermentations, so still cashes. Now with Matteo, between 2015 and 2025, in these 10 years, we renovated a lot the winery. First of all, what we do is to increase a lot and to think about to invest on the properties located in Barolo. So we wanted to reflect a little bit different shade of production of Barolo, for example. In the same way, we wanted to also make something different in a way always respecting nature and all the tradition in the winery. So what we have done is to a little bit more encourage on new technologies for the fermentation, different, a little bit more softer pressing machines. We started to invest a lot to change the fermentation in the concrete instead of the steel. So we are always trying to use new technologies, but always respect the tradition. This is what make a difference for us. So
Okay, so based on those traditional winemaking, Barolo wines, for example, which had tended to be quite requiring quite a lot of time to temper the tannins, you're now making wines that are a little more supple and approachable at a younger age. Would it be fair to say that?
yeah, it is. So, for example, also for the aging in the wood, we are not just respecting the tradition of just big wood, so 5,000 liters of capacity instead of maybe the tonneau. So we are always encouraged to try something different, to do experiments, and also, as I told you, express every vintage in the way it is.
Okay. I'd like to turn now to a grape variety that Luigi Einaudi really championed in the creation of the Dogliano DOCG. It's a grape that perhaps our listeners is readily when they're thinking about Langhe as they do Nebbiolo, but Dogliani can produce great wines. And that, of course, is the Dolcetto grape. Can you tell us a little bit about Dolcetto from Dogliani? What makes it from Dogliani so noteworthy and such a distinct expression?
Yeah, the Dolcetto of Dogliani is first of all for us one of the first wine that we introduced in the winery. So it's really effective wines for us. We are in the heart of Dogliani, so really related to the soil. This kind of Dolcetto is really really particular. It can be produced in few villages, so we are in this way in the heart. It's really fresh, fruity, with a really lot of acidical taste wine that is our wine we used to say for the Sunday lunch with the family. So really familiar wine. It's a wine that had the certification DOCG, so Denomination of Origin Control and Guaranteed by the state by the 2011. So had a really good value by the years. Is a Dolcetto, really, really perfumed, everyday wine, but not banal. So it's, I'm used to say, one of the hardest typology of grape to keep and also to preserve and to control instead of maybe Nebbiolo or some other varieties. So a really ancient, really historical grape related to the soil and to the tradition of our village.
So Dolcetto is grown elsewhere in Le Langhe,
Yeah.
but it's only in Dogliani that it has this DOCG, and where it really, in my experience and tasting your wines, there's a real intensity and a concentration of this beautiful fruit, the gorgeous color that Dolcetto has, an expression of concentration, and but in a gentler way than, say, the great Nebbiolo wines, which have tannins that are more, what shall we say, impegnativo, whereas the Dolcetto has a more gentleness to it, but still structure and even a capacity to age. Is that right?
Yeah, we are producing, for example, in our case, two lines of Dogliani, the Dogliani Classical, we used to say, that is the most historical, and the Dogliani Superiore, that is a limited production that it's best in the wood, that can be also used to be aged for a little bit more. So we used to advise like usually for 5 years.
Giulia, Poderi Einaudi has 13 cascine, as you said, 13 farmhouses, and These lie in some of the most important MGA crus that have been recognized historically as producing some of the best wines of the Langhe region, notably across Barolo and Barbaresco. Can you just highlight for our listeners a couple of other flagship wines that you'd like to draw attention to?
Yeah, first of all, we can talk about the production of the Barolo that we increased in the past years, like Barolo Monvigliero, that is located in Verduno village, or Barolo Villero in Castiglione Falletto. We have now a really deep reflection of different soils in Barolo area. So we invest a lot in the production of Barolo. So we decide to a little bit invest in different villages. We have now historical Barolos that are come from just Barolo village. The Barolo that we introduced were from Bussia, from Forte d'Alba, Monvigliero from Verduno. So Barolo, for some reasons, a little bit more delicate, and at the same time, for example, for Bussia, a little bit more structured, full body. Talking about in a specific way on the Barolo Monvigliero, it's a really diamond for us, talking about the Barolo production, because it was put in commercial in a really specific year in 2022, where we celebrate in that year the anniversary of 125 years of the winery. So for us, it was a really good combination to have this kind of new production. And in the same time, we decided to release this kind of production with a specific particular label that was a collaboration with a famous Italian artist. It's a combination between the most passion of Matteo, that is the study to be as an artist, so he really loved to collect in art, so he wanted to reflect some of his passion also in the new wines, in the new production. So this is why we have this kind of collaboration. So it's a really particular Barolo that we can find is situated in Verduno village, so in the north part of the Barolo area. It's a Barolo really dedicated, really balanced. So the label also reflect and signify what you can find inside the bottle, so reflect the style of the Barolo. We have a design of a horse that is up to 2 columns. So the horse, for example, has a general animal, symbolize the structure, the potential as the Barolo, as a wine, and the column under the horse symbolize the balance of the zone of Monvigliero. So for us, it's a really important Barolo to reflect the new style, the new generation, and also the new technologies that we improved in the winery.
Okay, and at the same time celebrating 125 years
Correct.
of the winery. I think what I find particularly interesting about the Poderi Luigi Einaudi wines, particularly the Barolos from these 13 cascine, you have a number of different MGA, such as the one you just described, the single vineyard menzione geografica aggiuntivi, which I think it's important for our listeners to understand that, we can really now taste terroir in a very particular way, noting the differences of wines all made from the Nebbiolo grape, vinified in similar ways, but really truly reflecting terroir and the differences across these different comune. All of the wines that you produce, and I know it's a large range, Giulia, are wines that are gastronomic. They're wines to be enjoyed at the table with food. And the gastronomy of Langhe is one of the richest and most appealing in all of Italy. And I think we're at a time of year when that's particularly true. So I just wonder if you could share with us a few classic dishes of Le Langhe that you would pair with a particular Einaudi wine that our listeners could imagine enjoying wherever they are, or even better, come to the region, come to the area to sample.
Yeah, the most famous dishes that I'm thinking about are the classical appetizers that you can find in a Piedmont kitchen, like fassona tatar, that is a raw fassona beef that can be served with cheese shavings, that can be paired with our Dogliani, for example. Other appetizers from the Piemontese kitchen can be the classical vitello tonnato, that is a dish of a slice of boiled veal covered with a tuna sauce. Really nice also to be mashed with dolcetto, so Dogliani, or Also, why not Nebbiolo as well? Talking about pasta, we have really well-known agnolotti del Plin that are a kind of smaller ravioli that are filled with meat and served usually with butter, or maybe tagliarin that are really typical from Piedmont, are a kind of thin egg tagliatelle, really fresh, that can be topped sometimes with meat or maybe mushrooms. So really nice to pair with historical nebbiolo or a barbera, for example. Talking about, for example, second courses, I'm thinking about the brasato al Barolo. That is a kind of meat that is slowly braised using also Barolo wine. Really nice to pair with strong Barolo like Pussia, Villero.
Okay, those are some of the real classics of the Langhe kitchen, some of the great dishes that everyone should try. And those are great wine pairings. Giulia, what would you say is the best way to enjoy the tartufo bianco d'Alba, and what wine pairs best with it?
For me, the best pairing with Tartufo Bianco is to pair with egg boiled and also pair with young Barolo or a Nebbiolo.
Really super simple to allow this amazing perfume of this overpowering even aromas of the white truffle to fill the room, and then to have a young Barolo with that. That would be a real treat for anybody coming to the area, especially at this time. It's only a short season, Giulia, isn't it? Is it only through December? Will the white truffle be harder to find come January?
Yeah, I start in October and then until December. So it's possible also to find the truffle until January, but usually the best time to eat the truffle depends by the years, depends the condition of climate. It's usually between end of October, let's say, and also the entire month of November.
Okay.
If you have the best condition of climate, so really high humidity, you can find really perfumed truffle in the region.
Okay. And has it been a good year for truffles this year?
It is. It's starting to be in October, classical year. So the truffle hunting was good. Not so many truffles, but really perfumed. So few, but really on a high quality. Now that's starting to a little bit snow the last week, and also it's starting to be more cold and humid. I suppose the season of the truffle will be even better.
And Giulia, is this something, the right truffle, as well as the dishes you've described, that guests can enjoy in the Luigi Einaudi? Tell us about this wonderful hospitality venue that you have and that you're involved with.
Yeah, we start also to have the founding of the winery, but later in the years, in exactly 1993, we ruined and also we renovated a new building that was related to the winery. So in the same hill, in the same position, and we built a few rooms. So we started officially in 1993 with 4 rooms. So it was a really small B&B on the top of a hill in the Dogliani village, and then in the years later we renovate another part of the house, always by the same property, and now we used to say that we have a medium small B&B with in total 10 rooms, with a really nice view to the landscape of the Langhe and in general to the landscape of Dogliani and the mountains. And also in particularity, we are really famous because we have also built a really nice swimming pool that has a shape of a bottle of wine. So always related to the wineries.
Well, that would be a wonderful place for our listeners to come and relax in the beauty of Le Langhe and discover the wonderful wines from Poderi Luigi Einaudi, and also sample some of the typical foods. Giulia, thank you so much for sharing with us the story of this historic winery. It's been a real pleasure meeting you here today, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
We hope today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast has transported you to somewhere special. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Until next time, Chin Chin.